All right, welcome back. Today, we're cracking open the history books to look at a moment of absolute crisis in ancient Israel, a story about two kings, one throne, and a nation literally tearing itself in two. We're diving deep into the second chapter of 2 Samuel. Now, before we get into any of the names, the places, the nitty-gritty, I just want you to let this question sink in. It's a cry of pure desperation from the middle of a battlefield, shouted while brother is fighting brother. And you know what? It just perfectly captures the tragic heart of the story we're about to get into. Okay, so let's set the scene for this divided kingdom. We're talking somewhere around 1011 BC, and Israel is staring down a massive leadership crisis. King Saul is dead, and that leaves this huge, dangerous power vacuum. And you gotta understand, in the ancient world, an empty throne wasn't just, a political problem. It was basically an open invitation to total chaos. Old tribal loyalties, simmering rivalries, personal ambitions, it's all starting to bubble up to the surface. The whole kingdom is about to crack right down the middle. And here we see the first move from our main character, David. This is the famous giant slayer, the guy who was already anointed to be the next king. But look at what he does here. He doesn't just march on the capital and take what's his. No, he stops. He actually asks for divine guidance. This one small detail, it tells you everything about his character and the foundation of his claim to the throne. So how does this all get sorted out? Well, the short answer is, it doesn't. Not with one leader, anyway. Instead, out of all this chaos, two rival kings pop up, setting the stage for a massive national conflict. Let's meet our contenders. And here you can just see the whole conflict laid out. Down south, you've got David. His claim, it's based on being chosen by his tribe and, really importantly, by God. Then, up north, you've got Ishbosheth, who was Saul's son. His claim is all about his bloodline and the fact that he's got the powerful General Abner backing him up. It's the classic showdown, right? Divine will versus human politics. And we really have to pause on this word anointed. To Masha, a leader back then, well, that wasn't just some fancy ceremony. It was this incredibly profound religious and political statement. It meant you were set apart, chosen by God himself for a special job. For the tribe of Judah to anoint David was to basically declare God is on his side, not just a bunch of politicians. So you have two kings, two armies. A clash is pretty much inevitable, right? And it finally happens at a place called the Pool of Gibeon. But the fighting doesn't kick off with a big charge or a hail of arrows. It starts with a really, really strange proposal. So General Abner, he's the top commander for King Ishbosheth. He says this to David's general, Joab. Let the young men play. I mean, it sounds almost casual, doesn't it? Like they're going to have some kind of sporting event to settle this thing without an all-out war. But oh boy, is there a deadly hidden meaning in that one little word. And this is where it all goes wrong. Everything hangs on the crazy ambiguity of this one Hebrew word, sahak. Does play mean a friendly athletic contest, a mock battle, or does it mean a brutal duel to the death? That question just hangs there in the air, and then it gets answered in the most horrific way you can imagine. Yeah, that game turns into an absolute bloodbath. Instantly, 12 men from each side get up and they all go down together in a heap. And that one little spark is all it takes to ignite both armies into a furious, full-scale battle. It's like the entire Civil War in a tragic little nutshell. And when the dust settles, after the battle and the horrible chase that came after, this is the final tally. 380. 360 of Abner's men, 20 of David's. A total of 380 lives snuffed out. And it all started with that one slippery word, play. But here's something really cool. The way this story is told is just as important as what happens. I mean, this isn't some dry historical report of who fought who. The person who wrote this was a master storyteller, and they used some really clever literary tricks to shape how we feel about it out. I mean, just look at how this is put together. You've got this deep, biting irony, right? Abner, the guy who starts the game, is the same one who's later begging for it all to stop. The author also uses foreshadowing. The death of this one really fast runner, Asahel, is a big hint that this war is going to get very personal and very costly. And the whole battle is told using a technique called a chiastic structure. Basically, it's built like a mirror. The story builds to this one central tragic point, and then everything on the way out reflects what happened on the way in. It's a brilliant way to make you feel the senselessness of it all.
So, as you can probably guess, a story this rich has been picked apart and debated for thousands of years. It's so much more than just an old battle report. It's this text that's loaded with theological and political meaning, and different groups have found very different lessons inside it.
And this chart does a great job of showing how different people, at different times, saw completely different things in this one story. Jewish tradition, for example, often points to David's patience as a sign of his faith, while criticizing Abner for his ambition. Early Christian writers saw the whole thing as a big metaphor for the spiritual battle inside all of us. And of course, today, modern scholars look at it through the lens of power politics and the brutal ethics of war. So what would the original audience have taken away from all this? Well, the messages were huge. First, that God's plan works out, even when humans are making a total mess of things. It was also a powerful, terrifying warning about the horror of civil war. And it showed David as more than just a king. He was a prototype, a kind of forerunner of a future king who would finally bring a lasting peace. And that brings us full circle, right back to that desperate cry from the battlefield. Abner yells, "Don't you realize that this will end in bitterness?" And his moment of clarity, which came way too late, becomes this timeless warning for all of us. It makes us look up from this ancient story and into our own lives. And that's really the question it leaves us with, isn't it? How do we spot that moment before it's too late, when our own fights, our own disagreements are about to cross the line into that same kind of bitter end?